Hi everyone, this is Society member Doug Sperling, and we're going to use Google Earth to take a tour of Virginia and Truckee as it existed at end of year 1916, as described in valuation maps. So what we're looking at here is Google Earth, model of the world with satellite images draped over it mathematically, and then in that I have placed images of the valuation sheets that were generated in 1916 by the engineering department of Virginia and Truckee Railway and then filed with the federal government. And there are also station maps done by the same group at the same time for the same reason, filed the same way. They show smaller areas that have a lot of detail at a finer scale. So I placed these maps in the model. I georeferenced them. I did that by looking at stuff that's on the map and stuff that's in the Google Earth model, comparing those two, and I did that by selecting the folder that contains the valuation sheets and applying some fade, and then examining the various features together at the same time, and positioning the maps and rotating and translating them, and from that we have the information in there that lets you draw this red line right here, which in this case is the line of Virginia and Truckee that was built in 1871, and it went from Reno down to Steamboat, and it's 11.2 miles, and then in 1906 was transferred to Virginia and Truckee Railway, the reorganized company. Anyway, that's what we're looking at. So we're going to take a tour of the line. We're going to start in Reno, and you can see the old stuff, Virginia and Truckee, as I mapped it from the valuation maps, superimposed against the current situation in downtown Reno, which is really quite a bit different than it was in 1906. So let's turn the valuation maps back on a little bit and begin the tour. So Virginia and Truckee, for the purpose of timetables and engineering documents and mileposts, began right there, initial point, and it was at the corner. It was near the corner of Commercial Row and Sierra Street, and it was the spot where Virginia and Truckee connected to Central Pacific. There's the main line of Central Pacific. Ogden is that way towards the top of our screen, and oh yeah, I should mention this part of the track, the first 500 feet of track, so from right there to right there, were sold to Central Pacific in 1906, and they used it for a siding. After that time, the railroad began here. They did not restation the railroad. That means they didn't remeasure everything. So this is still zero. It's just that the property began here. So there's the Central Pacific Passenger Depot. Let's fade the map away and see what's there now. Whoop, wrong one. There goes the map. And of course, now it's the Amtrak station. Anyway, this was the first curve on VNT was a 9-degree right curve, and then this was the second curve was 16 degrees 30 minutes, so 16 and a half degrees, very sharp curve for a standard gauge mainline. Let's turn the valuation maps. Whoops, back on. Okay, a second kind of information we have is information about historic images, and basically I've placed these little place marks at approximately the position where the photographer was standing when that photographer made an image, and then if you click the thing, it sends a little signal to my server, and my server sends back this picture. And I got these pictures from Stephen Drew and Wendell Huffman, and I think that's everybody. And so I want to thank them for this. And they also advised me, you know, caption information, who, when, what year, etc. And then they also proofread a lot of this, you know, where I place these and why. So in this case, looking at this image, you can see there is Virginia and Truckee's well-known covered water tank. Here's the railroad bridge. Here's the railroad itself. There's a industrial type structure back there in the background. Here's another picture. We can see the same bridge, but obviously we're rotated around it toward the river. There's the same industrial structure. Here we are again from a different angle. You can see the bridge, you can see the right-of-way, you can see the same industrial structure. Let's talk about that structure. I'm gonna fade away the valuation maps a little bit, and I have some fire insurance maps, and I think it's sheet 10. So give that a little fade. So what do we have here? A couple of things, but probably one of the most important ones is that Rock Street used to have a bridge on it. The valuation showed us that as well. That bridge is not there anymore, but it's where this photo was obviously taken from. What else do we have? There's that mill. That's what it was, and that's approximately where it was. And looking at this sure makes it look like at least in 1916 or 1918, that's the date of these fire insurance maps. So 2 years later, it sure looks like the Riverside Mill Company that we see in all these photos here was a Virginia and Truckee customer. So, you know, there we go. It sure looks like, based on tracks connections, that was a customer. Okay, let's turn off the fire insurance map. We're gonna head south, and I guess we need the valuation maps back. You know, let's turn off the right-of-way maps for the moment. So we've got the finer scale maps, the station maps that show a smaller area. We're going to rotate around so we're pointing south. We're going to talk very quickly about Holcomb Avenue. That's this street right here. What is that like today? Here's what it's like today. It's a big wide street. It's 4 lanes plus a bunch of bike lanes and a lot of parking. So it's a big piece of public property. But in 1916, the situation was really much different. There was a strip of private property over here with a rail line centered in that strip of property, and there was a street over here called Holcomb Avenue. But in fact, if we look at a couple of historic images, we can see that it really wasn't much of an avenue. It was a dirt track, really, or path. This is at the corner of Toma Street. Here's the situation. Here, let's double click and get this the right way. Okay, here we are, and you notice we're pointing north, looking back up Holcomb. So this is a southbound train. You can see in the photo, you can see the end of the siding, so that locates us pretty well. There's the siding right there. And you can see there was a stone wall, presumably at their property line. And then this is Holcomb Avenue over here, but you can see, if you look closely, it's really just undeveloped grass. So it wasn't really, there don't seem to have been houses developed over here yet. This was not really a street precisely. It was just a strip of public property at that point. Interestingly, the street was not defined through. This is a narrow alley that's about 20 feet wide. So you can see that these parcels take up that space that's now street. Anyway, moving south, let's talk about this fact. There is a large area. There's a large area of Virginia and Truckee, and it's long. It's from about the place where Holcomb comes down and meets South Virginia to about here. Let's get rid of that. From about there to about Steamboat. So right there, it's a distance of 52,000 feet, which is about almost 10 miles, where there is really no trace anymore of Virginia and Truckee because its property has either been developed, like here, or let's fade this back a little, or is really part of the 395 development now. So anyway, there's no trace left. So understanding the relationship between the past situation and the current situation is not it's not transparent. It's not easy to do, easy to understand. So let's look at some images in through here. Here's an image. You can see there's a billboard. The road is way over to the left, so there's a significant distance. This is down near Browns in 1948. Here's another image. Here's what the railroad was like in this area. Basically, we got a fence, and by the signage in the background, we can see the road is on the other side of the railroad here. Okay, this shows the relationship really well. There's a sign, there's the railroad, and you can see probably 40 feet away there's the road. So the original lanes of 395 were these over here on the west. This was railroad property over here, and it was mostly grass with one tracks up the middle. Here we go. Here's another picture. Here we are looking at New Browns, looking north. And you can see again the road on the left. It's 50 feet over there or something, and there's a billboard. Here's Brown's siding. There it is. Another image. Okay, this one's real important. Stephen Drew wrote the caption, sent me this image for this presentation, and told me in text that the Brown School, which is in this picture here, it's right there on the right side of the picture, is the building still standing, and that allows us, we can analyze this picture because this track is tangent and the building is arranged at right angles to it, and the building is straight. So this is straight, and we know two right angles, which means we can analyze this photo and find this distance here if we know the size of something in the picture, and we do. And so what shakes out of that analysis is that the tracks were about 85 feet from that spot. This right here is Brown School. It's still there today, unchanged. So that means in this area the tracks were right there, approximately. And a couple more images through here. This again shows a relationship. There's a property line with a fence on it. There's the road. There's the railroad. Whoops, we don't want that one. We just looked at that one. Here's another one. This shows us this is 1939, and you can see again it's 40-50 feet over there or something like that. So here we are on the after the road makes the curve, and Steamboat is right there. So that sort of tells us where we are. And here's what it was like down here. There's the road 395 back in the old days, and you can see the road still exists. No, you know, it's I think local or driveways now, but the old road still exists in that area. Okay, headed south. There was a turntable, of course, at Steamboat. I think it was about 55 feet. Okay, a couple of curves here. This shows pretty well what this area was like. Taken from the train around 1950. And okay, now we're headed south across southward down Washoe Valley. Let's take a second to look at this map and see a little bit what it's telling us about this spot right here. So the railroad came through here. There's milepost 21 right there, and then here's what this map is telling us. Beginning of curve 6 degrees 08 minutes left. So this is a 6-degree curve going that direction. Left because remember, the line has a direction for engineering purposes. It starts back here in Reno at 0 and it goes this way. So a curve headed this way is left. So there's milepost 21. There's the beginning of the curve. The total curve is 27 degrees, and the end of the curve, EC, end of curve, right there. This tells us a little bit about this siding here. There was a farm crossing here, wooden water tank, whoops, which I forgot to draw. There was a wooden water tank right there. And if we apply a little fade, you can see pretty well the relationship between current situation on the ground and the past situation on the ground. Okay, we are gonna move along south. This is an interesting area. If you look at this area now, old 395 has a bend in it, and the purpose of that maybe is not apparent now, but when you realize the old relationship between the railroad, then it was apparent. Here's what was there. There's the cross bucks, and the railroad was right in there. And actually, this is an interesting photo. If we double click, you can see in the model, in the Google Earth model, you can see Slide Mountain. It's very distinctive, and here you can see it in the photo the same way. So, okay, let's bring the valuation maps back. And we're gonna head up over Lakeview. So this is the top of the hill. And we'll talk about this tunnel quickly. You can see in 1916 there was a tunnel here. I'm gonna turn off the map and turn off my material. You can see that here's the current situation. Here's the highway. When you're coming southward into Carson from Reno, this is up on the hill on your right. You can kind of see it if you know what you're looking for. So there's the remains of a tunnel here, and then you can see there's an engineered right-of-way out around. That is, of course, not shown on our valuation sheet. Here, let's bring those back. That's not shown on our valuation sheet because that happened. That happened after the valuation sheets were produced in 1916. So that stuff is newer than this valuation sheet. And there was basically there was a geotechnical problem with the tunnel. There was a soils engineering problem with the tunnel, and so they abandoned it. I believe this was 1933, sticks in my mind, and built this detour around. It's a very sharp curve. Okay, Now we're headed down the hill. This on the valuation map is a description of the various parcels involved in the affected by the railroad construction or involved in the railroad. Okay, we're in Carson. Let's fade these back a little. What's going on here? Well, this is section 2. This is valuation section 2 if you look at it. V2, so this is valuation section 2, sheet 1. So what's going on is when I fade out section 1, that doesn't affect section 2 because they're in a different file. We'll take a quick tour down here. So now I'm going to apply some fade to section 2, and we'll get in the area. There's the Nevada State Railroad Museum. So you can see there's 395. Whoops. Well, that's interesting. That's what's there now. There's a landscape feature. This is approximately the original right-of-way, right in here. But let's see some historic pictures. Okay, this is a good one. So what are we looking at? Double click this, and we were about here looking this way. So continuing south, and here we are in Minden. You can see the relationship between public space and private space that is very distinctive in the aerial image, is also very distinctive on the valuation map, and it's that relationship that allows these maps to be placed well. And you'll see, you know, so this is public property right here, and this is private property back here. Okay. Interestingly, you'll see there's the freight and passenger depot. You will see that, whoops, wrong one. You'll see that that was in a much different relationship to the street. So the street's been widened a lot, so the relationship was much different then than it is now. I think right here you can see traces of the actual railroad really quite distinctively. Let's turn off my work. There you go, and you can see that's the right of way of the railroad, and this fencing corresponds to the historic property line. All right, let's bring back my stuff. Bring back the valuation sheets. For section 1. Okay, and we're gonna Carson City. There's a lot here. There's too much to talk about in this talk. This is a whole other presentation. There's the depot that is of course still there. Let's look at that. You have to turn off my junk. Everybody knows this. There's the depot. And I believe this was the valuation office. Yes, it was. How do I know that? Here you go. It's probably hard for you guys to read. Valuation office. Okay. So headed up the line. We're going to get to Gold Hill here. Alright, I gotta check my time here, by the way. Okay, 24 minutes. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Gold Hill. So we've got some historic images here. I do not have a map that shows me where the Belcher mine is. It doesn't mean they don't exist. It means I don't have it right now. So what I did to locate this photo here in this spot, let's get rid of the valuation maps and talk about why I chose that spot. Let's look at this. There's a big pit here that everybody knows about that didn't used to be there. What's here that tells us something? There's two parallel tracks here, and they're tangent. There is not much tangent track on this section of the historic line, so that narrows it down pretty well. There's something else in this picture. There's an elevator structure, and there is these very distinctive tailings piles. And 130 years later, that photo was 1890. 130 years later, those tailing piles are still really similar. They're still right there, and they still kind of look like they did in that picture. So that one in particular is really pretty well preserved. So we know from all that stuff that we're about here. Now there's an image over here. I think it's this one. So we're looking at the school, and there's the same elevator structure, possibly from the other direction. Here's the school. What do we know about the school? Let's turn on a valuation map for Gold Hill. This one I think is, well, here we go, 1890. So I have many years in here, but this one's 1890. So there's the school, and you can see there's a stone wall in front of it. And the school, of course, now in 2019 is long gone, but that wall is still there. It's still actually pretty distinctive. It's right there. You can see it from the road if you know what you're looking for. So from all of that, from knowing where the school is, there's the school. You can look at this photo and you can see, well, the person was standing, you know, somewhere in this area, shooting towards the school right there. And that means this elevator structure was up here somewhere. And so there it is. So that relates this picture, these maps, and the model all to each other. And so we can start to construct the space, both in our minds and then in this model that I'm building. We could start to construct an understanding of this space. Let's look at this image and compare it to the Sanborn map. So we're looking here. There's a couple of tracks, Crown Point ore track. We know that from the caption. This is, I believe, again, Stephen Drew's caption and image. So those are the Crown Point ore tracks. There's a very distinctive hill, and there's, of course, the mountain. And then this row of houses along here. Crown Point mining facilities are over in here. So that means the bridge, Crown Point Viaduct trestle, is up here. So let's see if we can understand that in the map. Here we go. Railroad cars drawn by horses, platform and track. Railroad track. And then here, let's zoom out slow. And then this is the Crown Point Mine hoisting works. And then this is the viaduct right there. So you can see how the picture and the map work together to explain each other. Let's look at this Crown Point Mine. So here we are looking from the other direction. I'll double click this and get the viewpoint information. Notice the viaduct over here on the right. That's to our west. And here's the Crown Point works, and the railroad should be, we're just about eye level with it. So let's turn off the photo. Now something is different, and that's the fact that the valley is filled up by about 100 feet of tailings now. And I want to point out that the current Virginia and Truckee, as it was rebuilt, is not in the same spot as the historic Virginia and Truckee in many areas. In this area, that has mostly to do with these large changes caused by mining. Okay, let's look at a few more. So everybody recognizes, I guess that's Mount Davidson. There's the Miners Hall, and we're looking up the road. Virginia City is in front of us, and let's double click, and that's about the view we've got. You can even see the terrain features, like that hill right there are the same. And we'll bring back the Sanborn. Whoops. No, we won't. Wrong Sanborn. Okay. Oh, I don't want to take time to turn that on, so let's not. Let's look at a few more of these pictures. Now again, to understand the space, there we go. There's looking the other direction from about the same spot. What's over there? If you stand here and you look over there, there's the depot. So Miners Union Hall is about here, and of course if you go in there now, you will look at some street view, and that is what's there now. Nothing. It's gone. The depot, however, is still there. So that person, you can see that person that took that photo was standing maybe here-ish, shooting that way. Okay, we're going to press this to exit street view. Click this. That's a bug in the program. Let's look at the rest of these images. They're really great. Here, let's understand the space a little better by doing this. Okay. Since we're here, that's what the tunnel looked like in 1938. One of my favorite images ever, and I think we have 2 copies of it, or well, similar. So I'm going to double click, and that'll rotate us to our approximate view. See the railroad curving in through there, just like that. Tunnel, that means the tunnel is over here behind this building. Okay, let's look at this. Here we go. We're going to double click and understand how we're looking down now at Gold Hill. So we'll bring that image back, take it away. You can see the tracks, and here's a sort of similar view, 1876. So in this view you can see the track right there. There it is. And if I double click, we bring us to what I thought is approximately the view. See the hill right there, that hill, and then the relationship of this. Okay, I think we looked at all the images. One thing to notice is that tunnel number 3 is not used anymore by the reconstructed Virginia and Truckee. There's the relationship between the new line as it exists now, the reconstructed line, and the old line. Oh, this is an interesting photo. I thought we saw them all, but we didn't see this one. Alright. You can see the Crown Point trestle right there, and we're looking down the trestle, and this was actually quite a sharp curve on the trestle, which which loads the trestle laterally and amounts. It causes a need for a little bit of calculation that otherwise wouldn't be necessary. And there's the depot right there. So the track winds through this way. Now let's see if we can understand that view. I'm going to take away the Sanborn by fading it out of existence. So there's a couple things to note here. Again, the gulch now is completely full of about 100 feet of tailings, but there's the bridge. And then there is, now you notice the navigational qualities of this Sanborn map are not necessarily great. They can be corrected with software. I haven't done that, but they are not necessarily excellent. They are, however, very informative. So there's the trestle, V&T on trestle, 80 feet high. Other sources seem to say 85 feet. And then the depot is off to the north. Okay, so that's our tour. Virginia City and Carson City are such a big deal that they are the topic of future work. I do want to point out that all these files are available for download. You can explore them yourself by going to here, let's not do that. By going to crhge.org. So you can easily get Google Earth yourself. I have a video at the download spot at crhge.org that explains to you how to get my files, how to get Google Earth, and then a little bit about how to use them to look at stuff. All this is free, and so you can look at things, but you can do more. You can also edit my work and add stuff to it and change it. And I want to encourage all that. So anyway, thank everyone very much, and have a great afternoon. Appreciate your time.